Good evening. We'd like to welcome everyone to the Fulton campus of Itawamba Community College. I thank you so much for being with us tonight for ICC's celebration of Constitution Day. I got a couple of thank yous I want to share with y'all real quick. First of all, to the Cabinet and the Board of Trustees, we appreciate their, along with the following people on the list, efforts in making tonight happen. Dr. Michelle Summerall, Vice President of Instruction, Dr. Jan Reed Bunch in Community Relations for their support and promotion of this event, Emily Tucker and the Indian Delegation for their assistance, John Bowen and the Print Shop for his assistance, Robin Lowe, Heather McCormick, and Jay Humphreys, and the Honors Program for its promotion of tonight's event, Seth Shelnut for the stage setup, Walton's Greenhouse in Fulton, Mississippi for supplying tonight's ferns, the Social Science Division, and all the faculty and staff that have promoted tonight's event. I want to say a special thank you to all of those people. Let's give them a round of applause. I want to say thank you to our students for showing up tonight. What an opportunity to gain a little insight into our Constitution, how we interpret that, how views may be different from different sides of the aisle. But the reality is it's still our Constitution. At this time, I would like to turn the podium over to Chris Stevenson for tonight's introductions. He is our social science chair. Let's give Chris a round of applause. What an excellent program he's put together.
Thank you, Dr. Allen. Each year, colleges and universities across the country celebrate the creation and ratification of the Constitution of the United States. For 228 years, the United States has prevailed as a beacon of hope for the rest of the world, as we have nearly achieved perfection in democracy through the arduous work of our founding fathers. They met in Philadelphia to create a government that would give our young country an opportunity to survive and blossom to the great nation we've become. Constitution Day gives us an opportunity to reflect on the magnificent achievement of our founders who worked diligently through their political and philosophical differences to compose a document that allows the transfer of power in our country through the ballot rather than the bullet. That's right, not even our founding fathers agreed on everything when it came to politics. They were just as passionate about their beliefs and convictions as we are today. While many of them were divided on several issues, they eventually came together and worked through those differences to compose the celebratory document known as the U.S. Constitution. Tonight, in honoring that document, you're all in for a major treat. We have with us two very passionate, hard-working public servants that have volunteered to come here tonight and participate in discussion and a debate on various topics dealing with national, state, and local issues. Both of the individuals, I might add, are return guests, as each of them has served as a featured guest for our previous Constitution Day celebrations in years past. And let me tell you something, guys. It was always a wonderful opportunity when these two guys came and spoke. They were very engaging. The student body always responded well, and I know the faculty and the staff enjoyed it as well. One of our guests is a Republican. The other is a Democrat. While they may belong to different parties, the one thing they both have in common is their love for their country and their state. I suppose you all will see some fundamental differences as they approach some of the issues and questions that they are posed. I suspect that some of you will see a lot of similarities as they approach some of the other questions. Debate is often said to be healthy for democratic society. Tonight, we will celebrate Constitution Day by having an expose of democratic debate between two accomplished public servants. With that being said, let me introduce tonight's honored guest. Our first honored guest is Senator Chad McMahon. Senator McMahon serves as Senator in District 6, which covers Lee and Itawamba counties, which is part of our 5-county consortium. Senator McMahon, a Republican, hails from Guntown, which happens to be my hometown, where he had previously served as an alderman before being elected to his current position in 2015. Senator McMahon has worked diligently since his time in office on many economic initiatives to benefit his district. He serves on a number of committees in the Mississippi Senate and also serves as vice chair of the Municipalities Committee. Our next honored guest is Northern District Public Service Commissioner Brandon Presley. Commissioner Presley, a Democrat, hails from Nelton, Mississippi, where he has served as mayor of the town before being elected to his current position in 2007. Since then, he has been re-elected twice to the role of Northern District Public Service Commissioner. He has accomplished many things for his constituents since his time in office, so much so that we could not possibly have enough time to cover them all. He has led many initiatives to improve public utilities and services for his district in North Mississippi. He is also currently serving as the chairman of the Public Service Commission in the state of Mississippi. I might also mention Commissioner Presley is a past chairman of the Board of Trustees here at Itawamba Community College. Let's give a warm welcome to our two featured speakers tonight, Mr. Brandon Presley and Senator Charles McMahon. Last but certainly not least, let me introduce the other major component of tonight's event. Tonight's moderator, is none other than our very own Barry Emerson. Mr. Emerson currently serves as the Dean of our Career and Technical Vocational Programs. Mr. Emerson has been serving the college now for 22 years, which, let me say, he's quite a fixture here. We're proud to have him. So let's give a big round of applause for Mr. Barry Emerson. Tonight's event is a special event for the college. I would ask that all guests in attendance please turn your cell phones on silent and please conduct yourself respectfully towards our honored guests. Now, without further ado, I'll turn the floor over to our participants and our moderator, Mr. Barry Emerson.
Wow, what a good-looking group. Good evening, gentlemen. Thank you for coming to our beautiful campus. It is an honor for me to serve as the moderator of this event. It is my first time, so I'll ask you to be gentle with me. Tonight I'll ask you a series of questions that are represented in three different categories. First category is constitutional issues and your interpretation. The second category is local, state, civic, and economic issues that affect our area and, of course, our state-funded community colleges. And then the third category deal with a series of questions derived from topics submitted from our student body here at ICC. Each of you will have questions that you'll be allowed to answer first with a response from the other speaker. You'll be given 2 minutes to answer each of those questions. Good luck with that. I can't say hello in 2 minutes. And then the other participant will be allowed to respond. You each have lamps on your tables. If I can remember, I will turn the lamp on when you have 30 seconds remaining for your answer. But of course, you're encouraged to continue to finish your thought. So before we get started, I'd like to give each of you the opportunity to say a few opening comments about your opinion on the direction that we're headed in as a nation and as a state. So you'll each be allowed 5 minutes for your opening statement. Audience, we encourage you to observe this event with respect and courtesy as these individuals present their answers and responses to the questions. Please hold any applause until after each speaker has had a chance to complete his answer or his statement. So, you gentlemen ready? Senator McMahon, you won the coin toss backstage. You'll have the first opportunity to give your opening statement. You have 5 minutes, sir.
Mr. Emerson, thank you. Wow, what a crowd. Everyone, please take out your copy of the Constitution. What, you didn't bring yours? It's great to be here this evening. I want to thank Chris Stevenson for putting this event on, and Dr. Allen and ICC for hosting this event. Before I begin, I would like to recognize a couple of people that are here with me that are special to me. I don't want to miss the opportunity to recognize my wife, Dee McMahon from Nettleton, Mississippi. Stand up, Dee. Let folks see you. When you serve, your spouse and family serves with you. So I really support family values, so I also want to recognize that some of my family's here tonight. My dad, Larry McMahon of Tupelo, Mississippi, is here. My mother is here, Susan McMahon of Tupelo, Mississippi. My brother, Jeremy McMahon, and my nephew, Caleb, is here as well. So it's wonderful to have them, and it's wonderful to have this student body. Thank you all for coming out tonight. Now, Mr. Emerson, I'll tell you, I'm a little bit uneasy because when I came in the lobby, I saw a sarcophagus out there. For those that came in this side, are they going to bury one of us tonight?
I don't know.
So the Constitution is probably, in my opinion, the most beautiful document ever written by Congress. To think that it's 230 years old, and it was written at a time before automobiles, airplanes, before electricity. And think about it. It has endured. It's a treasure. It's a gift that's been passed down from generation to generation. And now it's being passed to the millennials for you to pass it on. And it's a document that became the model and the envy of so many other countries. They emulate what the United States is doing. We're doing so many things right as a nation. We're doing a lot of things right here in Mississippi. We're looking for the proper size of government in Mississippi. Government has continued to grow at an alarming rate. Actually, our budget today, our revenue is $500 million larger than it was 10 years ago. So government is continuing to grow, and we're trying to find the right size of government and still make the proper investments in education, in transportation, and in health care. So I came tonight not to talk, but to discuss and to interact with the audience, and I'm looking forward to receiving the questions from the young people. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Senator. Commissioner, you now have 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Emerson. Is this mic on? Can y'all hear me? Thank you all for being here. It's amazing what getting class credit will do to pack out an auditorium, right? I don't blame you. I don't blame you. I do appreciate you being here, and I echo what the Senator says about the Constitution. 230 years later, 27 amendments is all we've had to the greatest document, I think, on the face of the earth. So it's an honor to be here tonight to discuss this. I would point out, one of my biggest fans, Senator, is your mama, and she's sitting in this audience, so I want to get a thumbs up from you every once in a while if things go all right.
You leave my mama out of this,
Commissioner. You know what you always told me about, right?
Are we going to start talking about each other's mamas?
But seriously, ladies and gentlemen, thank you all for coming. It's very important that we talk about this. As I said, 230 years later, our Constitution is the second oldest on the face of the earth. That's amazing. And what does it in fact do? It constitutes, right? It constitutes our democracy. And it lines out for us the boundaries of what freedom means, what our democracy means, how our government is to work. And in the brilliant work of our founding fathers, we had checks and balances, 3 branches of government. And we have survived in a way that no government on the face of the earth has survived. Controversy after controversy. Think about when President Nixon was impeached. And he defied the Supreme Court and said, I'm not going to hand over the tapes. He claimed executive privilege. And our system of checks and balances did what? It worked. Because the Supreme Court said, no, sir, Mr. President, you're going to hand over those tapes. And so we've got something to be proud of. In a document that in every single amendment, all 27 of them, added to the freedoms of our country. The 14th Amendment. The 14th Amendment guaranteed equal protection of the law. It says, I just can't single you out because I don't like you and prosecute you for something. And amendment after amendment has expanded democracy. Now, the Senator and I are going to agree on plenty of issues. We're going to disagree on some. I think poll after poll that we see in this country and in our state's right. We're headed in the wrong direction. We're headed in the wrong direction when we can't get proper funding for local schools and community colleges and universities. We're headed in the wrong direction when the top 100 corporations in the state of Mississippi paid 0 in income tax. And you look at your check stub the next time you get paid on Friday and see if you paid. This is fundamental differences. It doesn't mean we don't like each other, but these are things that I don't see the state going in the right direction. I don't see the country going in the right direction. I don't think when a secretary pays more in their share of income tax than the CEO of the company pays, I don't think that's right. And I think our Constitution sets out freedoms and boundaries of government that says that we're going to give everybody in this country a chance. We're going to give a guy like me, whose daddy was murdered on the first day of the 3rd grade. My mama was a single parent long before those two words got put together and we started talking about single parents. And the freedoms in America enshrined in that document says it doesn't matter, I have the same rights as Bill Gates, who's the richest person on the face of the earth. That's the great thing about America. That's the great thing about our Constitution. That's the great thing about a living democracy that gives every single one of you the same opportunity as the richest person in the world and the same exact rights as Donald Trump. That's amazing. So I'm proud we're here to talk about it. I'm proud we're here to celebrate it from both sides of the political aisle, because we're Americans first, way before we're Democrats or Republicans, and we're freedom-loving people. So I'm look forward tonight to the debate. I appreciate the senator taking time to be here. I appreciate Chris Stevenson, who's got me and Chad up here plenty of times to this event, and to all the staff. Dr. Allen, it's nice to meet you tonight, and Mr. Emerson, thank you for being here. Thank you very much.
Thank you, gentlemen. Now begins the questions for the first category, which deals with constitutional issues and your interpretation. Commissioner Presley, you'll have the first question since Senator McMahon went first in the opening statement. Commissioner Presley, do you feel the U.S. Constitution is a living document?
I think that when the framers of the Constitution set it out in those hot summer days in 1787 in Philadelphia, that there was no way that they could have realized things that we deal with today. For instance, in the Constitution, as we talk about the Commerce Clause, y'all have studied that, about you can't pass a law that stops or interferes with interstate commerce. Crossing a line from Mississippi to Alabama, states can't do that. You can't have a law messing with it. The Constitution says that. Do you think George Washington was thinking about the internet? What about cars? What about airplanes? There was no way that was contemplated at the time in which the Constitution was adopted. If you read the Constitution literally, and I don't oppose that in some fashions, but if you read the Constitution literally, we can't have an Air Force because it doesn't mention the Air Force. It talks about navies, it talks about armies, but it doesn't talk about the Air Force. So I think that a living document probably is not a right way to frame the debate, but I do think that there are principles in which are outlined in that Constitution that over time, with changing circumstances within the country, such as the advent of the internet, and they didn't think about that in the Commerce Clause, that have to be considered. I see the Supreme Court as a border patrol, the border being the freedoms of the country, and is the government getting in and out of that freedom? And I see my lights on. So I wouldn't call it a living document. I think it is a document that sets out borders, but at the same time, we have to take into account the fact that things are on the earth today that were not there in 1787.
Senator, your response?
Thank you. I believe the Constitution is a static document that laid out a framework for 13 colonies to come together in a union of states called these United States, or shortened, the United States. It's a framework. And the brilliance of the document is that the founders knew there were problems with the document in the beginning, and they wanted to have the opportunity for future generations to change the document, to create the type of representative republic that they wanted. We're not a democracy. We're a constitutional, we're a representative republic. And many times people say that we're a democracy, and that's really not the case. We're a representative republic. 73,000 people of the 6th District elect me to represent them in the Mississippi State Senate. And I'm your voice in the Mississippi State Senate. So, it's been a wonderful document. We've been able to grow our economy. We've been able to incorporate people from all over the world who came here legally, and we've built a great and mighty nation together. And I'm proud of that.
Thank you, Senator. Next question goes to you as well. As you know, the 22nd Amendment limits the president to 2-year terms or a maximum of 10 years of total service in that role. Do you believe that there should be term limits on members of Congress?
Thank you for your question. I believe that there already are term limits on Congress. Every 2 years, we vote for a congressman to represent us in the United States Congress. Who would have thought, you know, the founders of this great republic said, you know, every 2 years the people may need a fresh voice. And it's the people's house, the Congress, the House of Representatives is the people's house. And every 2 years, we can send someone different to Congress if they're not representing us. I do think that when we made an amendment to the Constitution to limit the powers of the presidency, I do think that was a good thing. I think that that some presidents perhaps were using that and becoming imperial presidents, and I think that Congress, representing the people, saw that, and they passed a constitutional amendment and were able to limit his power. So I do think there's already constitutional term limits every 2 years, and of course we vote on senators, U.S. senators every 6 years.
Thank you, Senator. Commissioner, your
Well,
response?
I agree with the senator on this. I think that we have elections. Mississippi, for our state legislators and other state officials, voted on this issue in 1995 and overwhelmingly said we do not want term limits on our senators and representatives. Having said that, it depends on who the president is and whether you like him or not, whether you think they should have got 4 terms like FDR or 1 term or whatever. I understand, you know, that kind of goes with the person. I agree the president should only be able to serve 2 terms. The governor in Mississippi, up until Governor Lane in 1983 passed a constitutional amendment, the governor of Mississippi could only serve 1 term. Bad thing about that is it's hard to get anything done 4 years. It's hard to get anything done 8 years. And so I agree that we have the right to limit terms by election and by defeating candidates. What I would like to see is working to get money out of politics. So in fact, we can actually have elections that are more influenced by the people than by the dollars. But as far as term limits, you have a right to vote those people out. There's been examples of that. There was a wave election in the House of Representatives in the U.S. Congress in 2010. There was another wave election in 2014. That's just the way it works. So I think that we do have term limits. But you know what? The people have the right to amend the Constitution if they see fit to do it. That's the will of the people.
Thank you, Commissioner. Next question goes to you first. Do you feel the Supreme Court has enough power, too much power, or not enough power?
I guess it depends on whether you agree with whatever decision they've put out. If you agree with it, you think they hadn't got enough power. I think the Supreme Court, quite frankly, is a genius idea of our framers. To have 9 justices to serve a lifetime term, to be not politically inclined, they have to be nominated and confirmed, but to really sit there with the blind sheet of justice on them. I think at times the Supreme Court probably has overstepped their bounds, but I think at times they have also been able to interpret the Constitution in a manner in which it advanced those sentiments that I think our founders put in there. Let me give you an example of that. 1954 in Brown versus Board of Education, in every single court opinion leading up to that, it said that African Americans could not attend schools with white Americans because of institutionalized, legally imposed segregation. When the Warren Court issued the 1954 opinion on Brown versus Board, there was a fit throughout the South and in other areas of the country. It said, this court is overreaching. This court is overreaching. I dare say nobody under the sound of my voice tonight would say that the Supreme Court overreached when they decided to end legalized segregation throughout this country. So, are there times this court oversteps? Sure. In Bush versus Gore, I think if you look at that case when the recount was stopped in 2000, I think you could argue that the Supreme Court stepped in. Some would say, I don't necessarily agree with this, some would say they stepped in and decided the presidential election. So I think it depends on the court and it depends on the public sentiment at the time.
Thank you. Senator, your response?
I think the Supreme Court has too much power over our lives. The Supreme Court is just 9 attorneys. It's just 9 people's opinion. Do 9 people have the right to inflict their will on a nation of 350 million people, a continental-sized nation with 50 individual states? There has been times they've made good decisions. There's been a lot of times they made very poor decisions. The founding fathers feared the courts. They tried to limit the courts. You can read their personal notes. They were very concerned about the powers of the court. The Constitution does not call for 9 justices. It calls for a Supreme Court. That could be 1 justice. The Supreme Court was expanded under FDR so he could get through the New Deal. There could be infinite numbers of judges in the Supreme Court. That's something that it's a misconception that there has to be 9 judges. No, there was 5 at one time. It could be larger or smaller. So I do think that the Supreme Court many times has overstepped its boundaries, and we could talk about that some other time. You know, we could go into some details. I don't know if that's a 2-minute conversation.
It's not.
Commissioner.
Right, I
Would
agree.
you find that fair?
Yeah, it's a 2-hour conversation.
Yeah.
Thank you, gentlemen. You guys really are being gentlemen in regards to this 2 minutes. I'm not having to exercise any authority over here.
That's pretty tough for 2 politicians.
Well, there's only one politician up here. I'm a public servant. Brandon and I are very good friends, to be quite honest with you. My wife and Brandon grew up together, and he is a dear friend of my family's.
Absolutely.
And we came in here as gentlemen, and we're going to leave here as gentlemen and as friends.
That's correct.
So we are dear friends.
Thank you.
And he has been, for the record, he has had a tremendous career as a public servant. He was elected one of the youngest mayors in the history of Mississippi, maybe the youngest commissioner.
Close.
So, he's had a stellar career serving the public.
Thank you.
Certainly has. Thank you, Senator. Next question to both of you. Senator, you'll go first. In 2013, then Senator Majority Leader Harry Reid enacted a step to eliminate the filibuster for most presidential nominations, also known as the nuclear option. Since then, the nuclear option has been used by both the Obama and Trump administrations to push through their cabinet and Supreme Court nominees. How do you feel about the use of the nuclear option in the Senate? Senator?
Well, it's been called the nuclear option, but it's not the nuclear option. It's the Harry Reid option. Harry Reid was unable to move legislation through the traditional way through the United States Senate. So he took it upon himself to change the rules. And then after they changed the rules, now they want to cry, it's the nuclear option. When the other party wants to do the exact same thing that Harry Reid did. Harry Reid, Senator Reid, crossed the line and rewrote the rules. So, if at the time they could have stopped it, but they went forward with it, and I'm going to call it exactly what it is. It's the Harry Reid option. I don't agree with it. There was a long-standing Senate tradition in the U.S. Senate, and I want to remind you, I represent you in the state Senate. Here in Mississippi, I serve you in Jackson as your state senator. We have 2 great U.S. senators, and they serve you in the U.S. Senate. And both of them have voted against the nuclear option, the Harry Reid option. So let's call it what it is. It's the Harry Reid option, and he changed the rules. He shouldn't have, and that's my position on it. If he's going to change the rules, we're going to use the same rules when it's time to put forward legislation.
Thank you.
Well, I think we need to get a little history, because the question was posed as if Harry Reid was the first Senate Majority Leader to ever talk about breaking the 60 vote rule in the Senate. Just rewind to the Bush administration and a senator from Tennessee named Bill Frist, who was the Majority Leader for the Republicans under the Bush administration. The whole idea of the nuclear option was floated by Senator Frist. Now, that's just a fact. I agree with the senator. It depends on whether your party's in charge or not, whether it's a good idea, right? So the fact is, Bill Frist floated the idea. Sure, Harry Reid carried it out, but there was a gang of 6 in the 2000s, Senator McCain being one of them, that worked to try to preserve the 60-vote rule on cloture and avoid the nuclear option. But it was floated by Senator Frist. It was carried by Senator Reid. So I'd call it the Frist-Reid option, because they both have dirt on their hands for doing it. I don't agree at all with the nuclear option. Now, the Constitution, we're here to talk about the Constitution. The Constitution does not speak to a 60-vote rule. It doesn't speak to it. And so if we're going to literally interpret the Constitution, it doesn't talk about a 60-vote rule. It would not, it would never get us in a situation to have to use a nuclear option because it's not the Constitution. The framers had certain things that they wanted 2/3 votes on, ratifying treaties, constitutional amendments, and the like. It never spoke to how the vote should go about and what constituted anything except a simple majority in each house. So I think it depends on, I just don't agree with it. The Senate is there to be a cooling plate for legislation, and I think you've got to get to 60 votes to get agreement. So I agree with the senator. I don't like the Frist-Reed nuclear option.
Thank you, gentlemen. Now we will begin the next category of questions, which will be relevant to topics dealing with local, state, civic, and economic issues that affect our area as well as our state-funded community colleges. Commissioner, since you went first in the last category, Senator McMahon, you will go first in this category. So the first question is, what do you feel is Mississippi's greatest challenge we are facing as a state in 2017?
One of the greatest challenges is helping people find careers. Right now, only 50% of the age-appropriate workforce in Mississippi is working. Only 5 out of 10 people that are age-appropriate are working. We need to help and encourage and foster good policy that allows people to help find careers and go back to work. And you know, we're doing that. We've invested $50 million in the Mississippi Works program, where we're helping people go back to school to community colleges, just like this great community college, and helping them connect and find careers. And we're completely committed to young people, to making sure that you have the tools and the assets to compete in the 21st century. And there's so many great opportunities taking place here in Mississippi now. So many great opportunities that are taking place here. And you need to be sharpening your skills and be prepared to enter the workforce. You know, experts tell us at InSpark, Mississippi State's data center, they share with us now that 12-year-old students, 6th graders today, by the time they graduate 10 years from now, 60% of them are going to work in industries that don't exist today. Robotics, engines, new types of propulsion systems, drones, drone technology. Mississippi's leading the country in drone technologies. They're just around the corner. As a matter of fact, drone experts say within a decade, you're going to go outside and get in not your car, you're going to go out and get in your drone. And we've got to have a workforce that's ready to meet those challenges and it's ready to connect and go to work.
Thank you, Senator.
Governor William Winter, who wrote the Education Reform Act of 1982, has a great quote. He says, "The road out of the poorhouse leads by the schoolhouse." And the fact of the matter is, present company aside, because Senator McMahon has been a champion for public education, so what I'm about to say, exempt him from it. But on a statewide leadership level, it's time for our state leaders to put their money where their mouth is. And by that I say, community colleges have been underfunded. Public schools have been underfunded. Our infrastructure in Mississippi has been underfunded. And it's been because we've been tripping over ourselves as a state to give tax breaks to out-of-state corporations, the top 100 corporations in the state. And many of these things the Senator and I agree on. I'm just making the point of this as a principle. So our greatest issue is the brain drain and the lack of education in Mississippi. How many of y'all, by show of hands, plan to leave this state? Take a look at that. That's evidence. That's all the evidence we need of the problem in our state. We need to be making sure that we're creating jobs. Y'all, we need to be making sure we're creating jobs in Mississippi that make you want to stay here, not make you want to leave here. And we do that by properly funding education. We do that by properly funding our schools. And we do that by our legislature becoming responsible to the people again and not the lobbyists in Jackson.
Thank you, Commissioner. Question to you now. Recently, Mississippi's community colleges saw one of the largest reductions ever in state appropriations. Compared to the other two educational entities, K through 12, and higher ed, community colleges took the largest of cuts in comparison to those two. Community college enrollment in Mississippi has been on par with, or as in the past, higher than that of the four-year institutions in this state. How do you feel about the legislature and the governor's decision to apply the heaviest cuts to the community colleges in our state?
I think it's all about priorities. Y'all can get sick of hearing me talk about the top 100 corporations paying absolutely no tax in the state of Mississippi. Small businesses that know their customers that live on Main Street in our state pay taxes. Why on God's green earth should the top 100 corporations not pay their taxes? Now, but when they don't, we have an issue with funding community colleges. We have an issue with funding our schools. If you've ridden across one of our highways lately in Mississippi, you know you need to have some Dramamine because you're going to get motion sickness. And the issue is priorities within our state. I came from a community college. As the senator's wife and I, we graduated at Nettleton High School, graduated about 60. Not many people from my high school go straight to university. They come to Itawamba. They come here. And community colleges are the transition for rural children, sometimes for urban children, suburban children in Mississippi to go into higher education. It's egregious that we've done what has been done, not we, but what has been done to community colleges. I served as chairman of the board at this community college, and I can remember a time in our legislature and in our state government that community colleges mattered. I don't know we could say that's the case today as a whole within the legislature. So I think it's a sad thing. What does it do? You got to still fund the professors. You got to still pay the light bill. What happens? Tuition goes up. That hurts mamas and daddies. And so, by the way, to fund some of this stuff, one of my heroes in politics is Zell Miller, who was governor of Georgia, who implemented a statewide lottery. Why don't we do that in Mississippi to help our community college, our public education, and fund our schools?
Senator?
Thank you. Would you repeat the question for me?
Certainly. Mississippi's community colleges saw one of the largest reductions ever in state appropriations. Compared to the other two educational entities, K-12 and higher ed, community colleges took the largest cuts in comparison to those two. Community college enrollment in Mississippi has been on par with, or as in the past, higher than that of the four-year institutions in this state. How do you feel about the legislature and the governor's decision to apply the heaviest cuts to the community colleges in our state?
Thank you for your question. Folks, it's economics. How many of you here buy products on the internet? Okay? Revenue's down in the state, and one of the reasons is because we're buying more and more products on the internet. All of us, we're all guilty, right? When you buy something on the internet and you avoid the $7 tax on $100, when you avoid that, it affects all of us. We're all in this together. And I want to address, the commissioner has said on more than one occasion tonight that, you know, we're cutting taxes for the top 100 businesses in Mississippi. Okay? That was done. We did make some adjustments to the tax code to encourage businesses to come to Mississippi. It's a competitiveness. Guess why? Alabama and Tennessee and Louisiana, they don't have those taxes. So when Nissan came here, these are the companies that have come here since we've been trying to find the right size of government and the right size for you to pay taxes. How many here want to pay more taxes? Could I see your hand, please? Yeah, that's what I figured. No one, not a single person wants to pay more taxes, Commissioner. Toyota, Nissan, Yokohama, Continental Tire, all of these companies, and by the way, Continental Tire was the #1 economic project of 2016, and they chose Mississippi when they could have gone anywhere in the world. We're looking for the right size of government. We're making the proper investments, and let me share this with you too. People like to talk about, you know, that we're not being good stewards. We're actually being great stewards of your money. Government doesn't make anything. Government takes money from individuals and distributes it. That's what government does. It doesn't make anything. So we're looking for proper investments in government, and we're looking to partner with businesses that will come to Mississippi and do business in Mississippi and provide careers for you so that you may choose to make Mississippi a home and raise a family here.
Thank you, Senator. Next question to you first. A recent report indicated that Mississippi has one of the highest number of prescriptions issued in opioid pain medication per capita in the country. What do you feel are the proper measures in dealing with the opioid crisis that has hit our nation and our state? Senator?
This is a tough issue, and I'm going to break it into legal and illegal opioid use. If people are dealing drugs, whether legal or illegal, and they're caught, they should be prosecuted to the full extent of the law. But I am very reluctant for government to enter into the relationship between a doctor and a client. That's legal. That's legal medicine, legal drugs. Some people here, I want you to understand what this means. If we pass legislation to limit opioid use, let's say that hydrocodone. How many of you have had a root canal? Some of you probably still have all your teeth, and I envy you for that. Yeah, when you have a root canal, how many of you would like to go home with no opioids or no hydrocodone, no Percocet, and endure the weekend? Yeah. Do you want us to pass legislation to limit that? Or do you want that to be a private contract, private business between you and your doctor? That's exactly right. You want that freedom to interact with your doctor without government's hand being in the mix as well. But I do want to speak with the young people about opioid use. I've toured 34 schools across Mississippi, public schools, and I am a big supporter of public education. And speaking of public education, do you know how much money we're giving you? How many of you went to Mississippi schools? I graduated from Tupelo. Yeah, a lot of them. Do you have any idea how much money you've been given? Do you think education is free? It's the largest item in the budget. Every Mississippi student is receiving roughly $7,000 per student. So by the time you graduate high school, we gave you $84,000. You got an $84,000 education. What did you do with the people's money? Did you spend it well? Did you invest in yourself? But I do want to speak to you about the opioid use. If you're using drugs, young people, it's a dead end. You go down to Itawamba County Jail, you go to Lee County Jail, you tour any jail, right, Commissioner?
Absolutely.
It's going to destroy your life. It's going to destroy everyone around you. And I'm asking you not to use, to put it down. No one takes that first hit or first snort and says, man, in 20 years, I want to be in a mental hospital in Tupelo. Nobody does that. And I see people every day that call me. They're like, please, Chad, please help me get my child in a drug rehab. Please, we're out of money. They've been through our life savings and our kids are hooked on it. I'm asking you, please don't go down that road. It's not funny, it's not cute, and it's a dead-end road. And I care about you, and I'm sharing truth with you right now. Care about yourself, get a good education, and find a career that helps you exceed in life. I'm sorry I went long. I'll go short on something else, Mr. Emerson. I'm sorry.
That's all right. Thank you, Senator. Commissioner, your response.
With all due respect to the Senator, I want my $84,000 because I didn't get it. We need $1 million per child education in Mississippi. Because here are the facts. Ladies and gentlemen, here are the facts. You want a silver bullet to fix so many of the problems in our state, it's education. But that's not what this question's about. It's about opioid abuse. I would argue this isn't about between the doctor and the patient. This is about pure profiteering by prescription drug companies who have gone out and told doctors that this is a one-all, fix-all, and they have profiteered unbelievably off of this. So many of these drugs of which people are hooked on today were not even heard of years ago to deal with pain, and yet pain was dealt with fine. The fact is, big pharmaceutical companies see this as a way in which they're making tons of dollars, and we have doctors over-prescribing painkillers day in and day out. And I dare say to you that there's not a family in the state of Mississippi that's not been touched by this. Mine has, not in necessarily opioid abuse, but some of y'all heard about crystal meth. And I had a member of my family who had, God forbid, gotten on that. And I remember when the bill came up in the legislature to talk about Sudafed. And the same arguments were made as we're interfering between the doctor, we're interfering in between health care. And with all due respect, I was asked by the Mississippi Bureau of Narcotics to come over and testify before the legislature. I didn't end up making it because they were already decided the bill. And who was lobbying against stopping the proliferation of Sudafed to make crystal methamphetamines? The company selling Sudafed. It's a shame and a disgrace that we have this crisis, and believe you me, it's a crisis in our state, and it is being propagated and continued by big prescription companies, big pharmaceutical companies, and there's no doubt there's overprescription. I support Attorney General Jim Hood, who is taking on this industry just the way Attorney General Mike Moore took on the tobacco industry when they told us it wouldn't cause lung cancer and it wouldn't be addictive.
Thank you, gentlemen. I appreciate your passion on that topic. Last category are questions derived from topics submitted by our student body here at ICC. Commissioner Presley, you will go first in this category. In regards to North Korea's recent missile test, do you feel President Trump has responded appropriately to that situation?
I think the president needs to get off Twitter and talk to his generals. And I'm an American. I support our president if I don't agree with the person in office. But I think it is childish when today the leader of the free world is talking about things about long lines in Korea, calling them losers and that sort of thing. This is the office held by Abraham Lincoln. This is the office held by Ronald Reagan. This is the office held by George Washington. And so, yes, I think that kind of activity is childish. I would encourage you to read a book called The Guns of August by historian Barbara Tuchman. It ain't going to be exciting. But it talks about the things that led up to World War I, which led to World War II, which led to Korea, which led to Vietnam, which led us to the attacks of 9/11. And in that book, Tuchman lines out the fact that national affairs and international affairs are very dicey. And personally, I believe what Teddy Roosevelt said, walk softly and carry a big stick. But the thing about it is, America is the shining light of democracy throughout the world. We have to continue to have the respect of our allies. I think the president's rhetoric about how NATO should be treated is absolutely wrong. And I think there is just so much uncertainty from the Twitter feed every day that world leaders have a hard time knowing where we stand. I find it strange that he can find nothing bad to say about Russia, but everything bad to say about our allies. That disturbs me.
Thank you, Commissioner. Senator, your response, Senator.
Ronald Reagan had a policy in the 1980s of peace through strength. To trust but verify. These were great policies. The modern military it's built in the shadow of Ronald Reagan. The investments in the technology and in the war equipment to defend this great nation in the 1980s has paid dividends for more than 40 years, for nearly 4 decades. Peace through strength. And I'm thankful that we have those devices and the men and women of the United States military defending us. Bill Clinton changed those policies. Bill Clinton allowed the North Korean regime, he gave them money for appeasement. And they started building rockets. Go back and look, this is a fact, folks. This is a fact. And the rocket technology that we're faced now as Americans was developed under President Bill Clinton's. He should have stopped it when he could have. Now, the commissioner has made mention of the Soviet Union, of Russia, Soviet Union's collapse, of Russia. We are watching the Russians. We watch them every day. And I want you to know that our elections in this nation are safe, they're secure, and here's the secret. There is no national voter registration. There's no computer to hack. That's the truth, young people. There's no one big computer somewhere that you can hack. We're 50 different states. Every state's responsible for its own voter registration. Jackson doesn't even have a voter registration. It's in your local county. So you're telling me that the Russians are going to hack thousands of computer systems across this entire continent? It's not true. It's a farce. It's just out there. It's just being repeated over and over. Our elections are secure. A president was chosen by the people. It's time to get behind that president to help him, because we're facing some very difficult opposition. This thing in North Korea could get serious, folks. And it's time to come together as Americans to protect our homes and our freedoms in this great land, and to support the men and women who are standing on walls around the world protecting us. Next time you see a soldier, you thank them. You thank them for their sacrifice. That's my answer.
Thank you, gentlemen. Senator McMahon, next question. In 2013, Governor Bryant signed Senate Bill 2633, which states that all school districts must adopt a policy to allow limited public forum at school events such as football games or morning announcements to let students express their religious beliefs, with a disclaimer that such student speech does not reflect the endorsement, sponsorship, position, or expression of the school district. How do you feel about Governor Bryant's decision to support prayer in Mississippi's public schools?
I think the most beautiful document on the face of the planet is the Holy Bible. I'm not ashamed to tell you that. We need more now than ever the teachings and the principles of the Lord Jesus Christ that said to love your neighbor. Love your neighbor in spite of whatever color they happen to be. To love your neighbor as yourself. We need that today. Now, I support student-led prayer in public schools. I think prayer should be in public schools. I think prayer should be in all schools. It shouldn't be limited. This beautiful document, the Constitution, guarantees that you have a right to your faith. And if you're a person of faith, you shouldn't be pushed out of the school system or any other school system for that matter. You should be able to pray openly if that's what you'd like to do. And so I support that. I support the governor's decision to allow that. And there are great things happening across our public school systems. And I'm grateful. I'm grateful to live in a country where we've always had freedom of religion until the last 30, 40 years. It's been under assault. But I'm grateful to live in a nation that our Constitution recognizes the right of a free people to your faith.
Thank you, Senator. Commissioner?
I definitely support prayer. We open the Public Service Commission meetings with prayer as the legislature opens up their sessions every day with prayer. I think the bill signed by the governor is a good bill. I have absolutely no problem with student-led prayer. I think where it gets into dicey issues, and I think y'all understand this, there was an amendment proposed years ago that said the school board would vote and write a prayer for the students to pray. And I can tell you right now, I don't support that, because I don't want 5 people telling any child in this state the prayer that they should in fact pray. Student-led prayer, absolutely. Prayer in schools, you better believe it. And what's the old saying? As long as there's tests, there'll be prayer in school. You can bet on that, right? But absolutely, student-led prayer is something I support. The bill the governor signed to recognize it in Mississippi schools, I completely support. But I think the issue comes down where I would get nervous is a college board of trustees enacting a prayer that you have to pray every day. And, you know, within Christianity, we have different ways of praying in the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Some praying in Jesus only. But student-led prayer, you better believe it. And I think that that's a good thing. I think, you know, in Nettleton, where I come from, Mr. Cherry was our Bible teacher there and actually taught principles and history of the Bible. I support that. But I do think that there is a proper way in which the school does not tell you what you've got to pray, and the government doesn't tell you what you've got to pray. Student-led prayer, voluntary prayer, absolutely. School board sanction, actual words, I don't think anybody wants that.
Thank you. Last question of the night. Recently, President Trump made the decision to end the deferred action for childhood arrivals, also known as DACA. DACA allowed some immigrants who entered the country illegally as minors to receive renewable 2-year periods of deferred action from deportation and to be eligible for a work permit. Do you approve of the President's decision to end this program? Commissioner Presley, you go first.
Do I approve of the President's decision? What?
To end this program.
To end the program?
DACA.
I think that you've seen the President even himself walk this back in the last 48 hours. There's not support, broad support, even within the Republican Party for rolling back DACA. Let's be honest and let's put a face on who these people are. They're children who were brought here by their parents out of absolutely no fault of their own. And even Governor Barber, who was kind of the granddaddy of the Republican Party in Mississippi, said that an immigration policy that says you're going to deport millions and millions of people just doesn't make sense and is not practical. Do we need strong immigration laws? You better believe it. Do we need to make sure people who are coming in this country are coming into it legally? You better believe it. And the fact of the matter is, if we just want to tell the truth, when we had the Arizona-type bill in the Mississippi legislature proposed years ago where you're able to stop and you're able to check nationality, the House of Representatives at the time, and I don't mean to make this partisan, but controlled by the Democrats under House Speaker Billy McCoy, said, fine, we'll allow the Arizona bill. But if you're a corporation, like some in Mississippi have been convicted of, and you're found to have hired illegal immigrants, you lose all your grant funds, all your tax status, and that was killed by the lobbying of corporations in Mississippi and was killed, quite frankly, by the Republicans in the Senate. Not Senator McMahon wasn't there. This is years ago, back ancient history. I think that you've seen the President walk back himself because he's got advisors that are saying, Mr. President, there's no way this is going to work. I think we're a country of laws. We're a country for legal immigration. But I think even President Trump has seen that his declaration to do that, he's had to walk it back. I don't think there's support within the Republican Party to do it. I don't see it.
Thank you, Commissioner. Senator?
We are a nation of laws. And look, immigration worked in this nation for over 200 years. It's just in the last 30 years that we've seemed to abandon all reason. We have millions of people that are coming into this nation and we don't know who they are. We have open borders on the southern border. We don't have a clue how many people are here. And I'm worried about the safety of families, of Mississippi families. I'm worried about the security of Mississippi families. You know, I think we need to do some vetting and find out who's here. I think we need to slow down the amount of immigration that's taking place in this nation until we can catch up and find out who's here. As far as the children that are here, their parents brought them here, we need some type of registration program with the states so that they can go and that we can know who they are and we have visibility and that we know who they are and where they're living and what they're doing here. And it's a safety and security issue to me. I don't want to lose one public school to a radical extremist from anywhere. It's only going to take one, and people are going to say, my goodness, you know, how did this person get in the country? And look what's happening in Europe. There's not a lot of freedom, liberty to own weapons in Europe, guns like there is in this nation, but people are using automobiles and trucks to run over civilians just who are at festivals. I don't want that here in Tupelo, Mississippi, and Fulton, Mississippi. And we need to find out who's here and properly vet those folks.
Thank you, Senator. Gentlemen, closing remarks. Commissioner, you go first. 5 minutes.
I think the Senator goes first. I think the Senator goes first. He got the first question.
That's nice of him. Senator, why don't you go first?
Okay, sure. Think about what's been accomplished in the last 125 years. 125 years ago, there wasn't an automobile on the planet. It didn't exist. 120 years ago, there wasn't an airplane anywhere in the world. The word didn't even exist in the application that we use it today. Electricity, indoor plumbing. We went to the moon in the 1960s. Look at all of the great things that have been accomplished. But we'll see more change in the next 20 years than I believe we've seen in the last 100 years. We're on the edge of a technological explosion. It's never been a better time to be a Mississippian. For those of you who said that, you might seek a career somewhere else, I think you might want to take a second look at Mississippi. We're the only state in the country that has both a Toyota and a Nissan manufacturing plant in the state. We lead the world in drone technology. We lead the world in radars. We lead the world in building ships. There's lots of great things happening here. As a matter of fact, it's one of the best places for a woman to do business. We're in the top 10 states for women starting new businesses. We have lots of creative people here, and they're doing great things with their time and their energy. $1 million will go further here than anywhere else. $100 will go further in this state than any other state in the country. And when you get ready to retire, if you'll take advantage and start investing when you're young, $1 million, there was a report this week in one of the papers that $1 million will last longer in this state than anywhere else in the country. We have more people that own their own homes today in Mississippi than ever before. That's a great thing. We have more people working in Mississippi than ever before. And I want to encourage you to consider Mississippi. It's a wonderful place to live. It's good people. Thank you for the opportunity to be here with you tonight. Our future is bright. Our best days are ahead of us, not behind us. And I want you to believe that because it's true. It's absolutely true. There's been greater challenges before this nation than what's been today, and we will come together and overcome it. And I do want to say this. As far as being a Republican or a Democrat, we all want the same thing. We all want safe homes, great jobs, and safe schools. We just disagree on how to get there, right? I've never met a Democrat that says, oh, I want to live in a bad neighborhood. We all want the same thing. And so I've got my hand out, and I'm willing to work with anyone that wants to make Mississippi a better place to live and a great place to live in the future.
Thank you, Mr. Emerson, and to all of y'all who took time out tonight, thank y'all for being here. I think tonight you've seen an example of how Democrats and Republicans can talk about issues without hurling accusations and without the gridlock and junk you see in Washington, D.C. We need more of that, not less of that in this country, y'all. We need more of that. I ain't going to stop you from applauding. We're here, though, to talk about the future, and I'm looking at it. The fact of the matter is we got tough problems in this state. We got tough problems in this country. We got tough problems in our community colleges. We don't have problems that cannot be fixed. But the story I heard one time was said that Mother Teresa, when she lost her sight, someone went to her and said, Mother Teresa, what is worse than losing your sight? And she said, it's having no vision. The Bible talks about the lack of vision. Ladies and gentlemen, this is not, what we've talked about tonight is not about 2017, it's about 2047, 2057. And a future that is out there in which we can win if we return government back to y'all, the people who own it. You know, I think about that little boy that'll get up in the morning and catch a school bus in a rural county like Itawamba County. Or that little girl in the Mississippi Delta in one of the poorest counties in the United States of America that'll walk down a gravel road and get on a school bus to go to school. And that young child in DeSoto County, a suburban county, that'll get in on a school bus to go to a school. And our questions as public servants is, what are we doing today to in fact make this state better for every one of those children? What are we doing to be visionary leaders? The fact of the matter is we've got to get back to building again. We have got to get back to investing in the future of our state and making sure that we put every hand on deck to making sure that we win that future, to make sure that we're giving you the tools, to make sure that when the next politician sits on this stage and asks, how many of you plan to leave Mississippi, not one dadgum hand goes up. That should be our goal in state government. That should be what we're doing, because you're worth it. The fact of the matter is you are worth it, and our state's future is worth it. It's dependent upon you. And we've got to have you. We've got to have you stay here. You know, we all, as the senator said, come to this in different ways. I think we all have the same goal in mind. It's like wanting to go to Jackson. Somebody else say take the trace, somebody else say 25. We all want to get to the same place. And state government can do that. We've seen it happen before. We've seen our state government through education reform, highway reform. How did we get 4-lane highways, the 1987 highway program? We've seen that happen in the state, but we got to get about doing that business. Because the fact of the matter is, the world that you're entering and the world that those 3 little kids I talked to you about that will enter when they graduate high school isn't getting slower, it's getting faster. And it's getting not more simple, it's getting complex. And I quite frankly feel like we sit around in Mississippi and we've told ain't it awful stories, ain't it awful we got the worst in this, ain't it awful we got the worst in that, when we ought to be putting our shoulder to the wheel to go to work and solve those problems. We've talked about it too much. It's time for action, and I'm proud the senator shares that view. I'm proud that we had a chance tonight to come talk to you and show you what Washington ought to be seeing more of, and I thank you for the opportunity to be here. Thank you very much.
And with that response, we've come to the conclusion of tonight's event. On behalf of Itawamba Community College, I'd like to personally thank the both of you for being here tonight. It's been a personal honor for me to have you here engaging in this discussion. We're fortunate to have public officials such as yourselves that are willing to come here before this student body and other guests in attendance and engage in a spirited debate. Got a little spirited a time or two.
Not too bad.
I thought for a little while I wasn't going to be able to use my light, and that was bothering me. But you guys came through. These are issues that affect us locally, but also globally, and so we appreciate your willingness to come. And like I said, it has been an honor. So, audience, if you will, let's please show our appreciation and give these gentlemen a well-deserved. Thank you. Good night.